Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. This is a subject I think is a powerful subject that we should all know about as leaders, as people, as managers. And a story from my side that got me thinking about this was many, many years ago. My first ever job was on an oil rig out in the Atlantic Ocean. And the first offshore installation manager, the first leader that I met, he took us, a load of us, into a room and said, right, this is your skill, this is your role, this is your job. If I can help, if we get any problems, let's sit down and try and work it out. You know what you're doing, I'm here to help you. And the whole rig, it just flowed beautifully. The work, the people, it all went very, very well. 2 weeks later, a new guy came on the rig and he had a certificate in leadership. He had an MBA in leadership. He was 29 years old. The first guy was 60. So the 29-year-old came on with a certificate in leadership and started pointing fingers at people and telling them what they should be doing. If they didn't do it properly, then we would have to answer to him. Now, I straight away learned from that who's the real leader? The guy with emotional intelligence who cares about people, who understands that he's there to help people to be the best he can be, to help them be the best they can be, or the leader with a certificate that's pointing fingers. That taught me a lot at a very young age, and ever since then I've seen that in leadership around the world, worked and lived around the world, and I see that all the time. So I think it's critical that we all understand the impact we have on people and performance, on quality of working life of people, even right down to that level. Emotional intelligence is absolutely key. So I'm going to take you through a few ideas over the next sort of 45 minutes, and as Sue said, any questions, bring them out at the end. I'd be happy to try and answer them. So what is it? A lot of definitions out there, as with everything out there. This is one I like. It's about understanding our own emotions, about being positive interactions, by responding and not reacting. And that to me is key. I ride a motorbike and I enjoy riding it very fast. And when I did my test, I went out with a police instructor, and he said the difference between responding and reacting is that if you're aware what's happening, if you've got an inkling of what's going on because you understand the people, you understand the circumstances, then you can start to be able to respond to it. If you're not looking ahead, i.e. on a road, if you're not looking as far ahead as you can, things will be happening and you'll have to react. Big difference between responding is being aware of what might be coming up. As reacting, you're not aware, you haven't got the emotional awareness, you don't know what's happening in your team, with your people, and you can have to react, and that's a lot harder to do. So I think responding, not reacting, is a key point. So it's absolutely one of the first and single most traits of a leader, of any leader. And most of the leadership courses you go on now will be bringing this up. And I think it's Daniel Goleman's one of my go-to people to think about this. But it's about having a sense of how things are. Yeah, we should know our people in our teams. We should know the people that we're working with, our colleagues. If we don't, then we're not caring, and they'll know that, and the response you will get will be very negative. The impact on performance will be negative, the impact on the people. So it's understanding your people around you, the emotions, the impact you have, and what they're going through as well. So a highly intelligent emotional leader, or emotionally intelligent leader, will have a sense of how things are, and why wouldn't you? And for a team to believe you, to understand you and be willing to follow you, there has to be some basic rapport and emotional understanding, else it will not work. And that's a quote from Daniel Goleman, who I think is absolutely a leader in this field. So what I'm going to talk about over the next sort of 40 minutes or so is what is it? We talked about that, emotional triggers, what actually triggers us, and then the business case around it, because there's a massive impact on performance of emotionally intelligent leadership driving performance through caring about your people, understanding and caring about your people. Can we develop emotional intelligence? Yes, we can. We can test ourselves. There's a lot of tests out there, self-analysis, and we can develop our emotional intelligence. So we'll have a little look at that, and then a summary to finish off. So the 4 areas I'm going to look at are self-awareness. It's about understanding and admitting that we've actually got some opportunities to improve. Yeah, what's our strengths? What's our weaknesses? How many times do we think about that? What's our values? What's our drivers? And what impact do they have on others? There's some questions for you straight away. So it's about setting clear goals for yourself that are in sync with your core values. It's about believing in yourself, being the best you can be, based around those values. And it's about considering what you need to improve. As I said, we can always be better. There's no such thing as we've done it, we've made it. There's always things we can improve on. There's new things coming along we need to think about. And these sort of things make us the best we can be. Understanding when we're making mistakes, there's nothing wrong with that. As leaders, we don't have to know everything. We can ask other people. We can co-create solutions with our colleagues, with our team, makes them feel valued and valuable. But if we're making mistakes, we've got to have that humility to admit it. And I don't think enough leaders show that humility. They don't think they should be seen to be making mistakes. But showing humility is a very powerful trait in a leader. And it's understanding how your behavior is perceived by others. So a few questions for you. What do your team or your colleagues think when you walk into a room? Have a think about that. How might you change that? Do you know what they think? Do you know what their awareness is of you and what they think of you? What do you feel when you walk into the room? Do you feel confident that that they actually appreciate you, they respect you? So have a think. If you don't think that, then you need to change some things. So some really good questions around this. As I said before, have you ever shown vulnerability or humility? There's nothing wrong with that as a leader. We don't need to know everything. We shouldn't know everything. And if we ask other people, that makes them feel valued and valuable. That's a great way to start creating engagement in the team. So be self-aware. If you are vulnerable, admit it. Look for help. Look for some solution creation with your peers, your colleagues, and your team. It's a great way to build engagement. So questions for you again, how do you usually react? Think about that. How do you react? What are you doing at the moment? Do you ignore problems? Or do you meet them head on? If you ignore them, they'll still be there and they'll probably grow. How do you respond to criticism? If it's constructive, given in a good way, you need to learn from it. And do you struggle giving feedback to others? If you do, we can learn how to do it properly, how to be better at giving it, how to be more engaging, more effective. So you've never made it as a leader. If you're having to think about these questions, you need to be doing something about it. Can you keep it cool? Can you refocus and get on with it? If you start feeling anxious, you know what to do to regain your calm. You've probably been anxious before. What worked for you? Different things work for different people. Don't think there's one size fits all. There never is. So how do you regain your calm? Learn from that. What did you do last time? What worked for you? And you'll start to build this self-awareness and understand how to respond positively as opposed to reacting, which doesn't do anybody any good. So that's your self-awareness. Social awareness. Do we understand how others feel, how they perceive things, and how that impacts them? We might have a great idea that actually other people don't think it's a good idea. We might ask them to behave in a certain way that they're not prepared to do. So do we understand our impact on others, how they're looking at it from a different lens? Take a step back and look through their eyes. Understand social settings, get used to them. We're not all good at going out and sort of mixing with people. Years and years ago, when I first came into industry in the UK, the big team thing was go down the pub in the evening. Well, a lot of people didn't want to go to the pub. So it's understanding what others want, what works for each other, what's our common ground. Understanding what your stakeholders need and expect from you. Don't assume you know what people want. It's about understanding what other people want. So again, some questions for you. What's your compelling vision for your team? And is the same vision their vision as well? Are you imposing that vision on them? Do you understand what they're about? What drives them? If you don't, then you need to go and find out. How do they see themselves? How do they feel about what they're doing? Where they're heading? How do they feel about supporting the vision of the group or the organization? Who are your stakeholders and how are you managing them? Are you aware of who those stakeholders are? If you're missing some stakeholders out, you might be missing an opportunity. You might be missing some information. You might be missing out on co-creating solutions. They might have the solutions. If you're not managing those stakeholders, you're not aware of who those supportive people might be, then again, you need to go out and do that. We need to be the best we can be by keeping improving. So some questions for you again. How well do you empathize with others? Can you put yourself in their position? See it from their lens. That's really important. Do you ever consider how your actions might affect other people before you take those actions? Again, that's about responding, taking a step back, not reacting, not jumping in with your emotions, making those decisions. Take the step back and think about how it might impact others. Can we communicate thoughts and ideas to others? How do we do that? If we're not doing it properly, if they're not listening, if they're not hearing us, then we need to change the way we do that. Communications is key. We all think we're good at communicating. Are we really? And I would challenge everybody to say, well, look at the texts you sent, your emails, or something you said to somebody. I bet every single day somebody said, oh, I thought you meant that, or I thought you meant something different. So we've got to be very careful how we effectively communicate. But keeping that communication is key, absolutely key. And do we take time to listen? A lot of conferences I talk at, audience of 200-300 people, whatever it is, I say, hands up who goes out and talks to people. And everybody puts their hand up, say, yeah, I go and talk to people, isn't that fantastic? Well, actually, it's not. It's about listening to people, listening to understand, making them feel valuable and valued, their opinions. Yeah, so it's being aware of what's driving other people and what they're thinking. So how do we manage ourselves? It's adapting emotionally to change. It's not reacting, it's responding. It's taking that step back. Don't immediately let your emotions drive your decisions. Take that step back if you're not doing already, and we've got to be doing it. And there's a lovely lady called Mary Lathrat back in 1895, a black lady poet, and she wrote a book about walking a mile in somebody's moccasins. Now everybody talks about it now, but we need to judge softly. We really do. We need to take that step back and judge softly. It'll start to build psychological safety in your team. Yeah, if you don't react, if you start to respond, put yourselves in their position. And there's a lot of psychology around this. Why do we do what we do? You know, how many times have you seen pathways even that are right angles? Everybody cuts the corner. We like to save time, effort, energy as people. We all do. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just human nature. Yeah. If you give people more than 5 or 6 things to do, they get stressed because we can only hold 5 or 6 things in our conscious brains. If we start to understand these things, maybe we can understand why people are doing what they're doing. Maybe we can learn to judge softly. Take that step back. Would you have done the same thing? So recognize what it is that makes you react. Change the context of it. Yeah, change how you feel about it. Reframe it to the positive. It's an improvement opportunity. It's not a problem. It could be an improvement opportunity for the team, for the individual, or for you. Change that context, and it'll help you manage your emotions. Yeah. If you can't control the situation, come to terms with it. We can't control everything. Sphere of control is a different subject, but it's all about, if you can't control it, you can influence it. Great, then let's influence it in the best possible way. But if we can't control the situation, step away from it. Yeah. Go around it, move on. Or co-create solutions with some colleagues. Ask them if they can help. Nothing wrong with that at all. And relationship management. So we've done self-awareness, social awareness. Relationship management is about influencing, developing others. Well, I ask this question of leaders and managers: what groups do you belong to or have access to in the organization? And if you sit down and write a list, you'd be surprised the influence you have throughout the organization and who you're impacting on, your behaviors, your feelings, your emotions, how wide that impact might be. And of those groups, do you actually deserve to have that influence? What would your brochure say about you? Would it say you're angry when you get cross? Would it say you do listen to people? You talk at people? What would it say? All these things, all these questions will help you be better, a better leader, a better manager, because you're taking that step back. You're looking through somebody else's lenses to understand. So, do we consider other people's feelings? It's a great way to actually get people talking and listening and build that psychological safety. Yeah, it's offering effective guidance and support. If you don't understand what they need, why they need it, when they need it, you can't offer proper support and guidance. You won't build that trust. It's about active listening. The key trait of any emotionally intelligent leader is active listening. Listening to understand, not listening to jump in and have your say, listening to understand what they're really saying And that could include body language. It could include the tone of the voice. It's having those skills. And three of the things you absolutely need as any leader, and this is researched globally and been on for many, many years, is communicating with integrity, honesty, and consistency. That's what people are looking for all over the world. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what your role is. The research shows that integrity, honesty, and consistency, you will manage relationships. You will build that trust. Yeah. So that's what I see as emotional intelligence and how we can actually improve ourselves. So what are the triggers for emotional intelligence? What gets us frustrated? What drives this these emotional triggers? Well, frustration, isn't it, of a particular situation. Things aren't going our way. Other people aren't acting properly. They're not doing what we're asking them to do. Well, is that their fault? Do they understand? Have we communicated effectively? Should we be in that situation? Can we ask people to co-create solutions around it? But frustration will drive those emotional triggers. Yeah, you will get angry, potentially. You'll resent people because they're not doing what you expect them to do. But is that their fault? Is it your fault? Is it the team's fault? Is it communications? Don't let it dwell. Go and do something about it. Deal with it. Then it's over. If you don't deal with it, it would probably grow. So if we get frustrated, ask why. Why are we feeling this way? Write it down and try and reframe that. Yeah. Why are we feeling this way? This is why. What can I do about it? Reframe it to the positive. An improvement opportunity, perhaps, is a really good way to look at it. Yeah. But you've got to deal with it. We're worried about something. We're all worried about something. Normally, we over worry, don't we? How many times have we lost sleep because we think something's going to happen tomorrow or next week, or somebody's going to say something and they don't? Maybe they're emotionally intelligent. They've taken a step back and seen it through your lens. Right, okay, we need to sort this out, but we'll do it as a learning opportunity, a learning review. We're not going to investigate it. We're going to learn from it. But it does have a major impact on the health and well-being, doesn't it? Yeah, increased anxiety diminishes your self-confidence. There are ways to do it. This is a proven breathing exercise. It's one of the few things that can actually lower your anxiety pretty quickly. Yeah, just take a step back, a little bit of time for yourselves. And again, let's reframe it to the positive. Could it be as bad as we think it's going to be? Probably not. Give yourself time to think about it. Relax yourself. Give yourself time to think of some answers. Put yourselves in their shoes and get some answers ready. Anger. This is the biggest one, isn't it? A bit like frustration, but it creates that negative environment for everybody. Allows resentment and bitterness to thrive. Colleagues start avoiding you. If you're an angry person, why would they want to come listen to you or talk to you? And again, it drives anxiety, depression, high blood pressure. It's not good for us. So we've got to take that step back. Got to reframe it, recontextualize it, see it through other people's eyes. So you've got to stop what you're doing. Yeah, take yourself out of that situation. If you can't take a step back, if you can't do that breathing and rationalize and come back to a level state, take yourself out of the situation. Yeah, allow yourself time to cool down. Think about how you're going to respond, and then come back in with a different mindset, a positive mindset, to find out why that happened. Not who did it and who you're going to point your finger at, like the guy on the rig, the boss on the rig. Be the other guy. Right, what can we do about this? As a team, what are we going to do? So take that step back, take yourself out of the situation and do something about it. Come back with a different mindset. The other one's disappointment. Yeah, we're disappointed with people, with ourselves. It knocks your confidence. But we're always going to get these things. Yeah, everything we do is going to have some ups and downs. As long as we're trending upwards, that's great. But don't be too worried about having little knocks and scrapes and bumps along the way. Recontextualize it, reframe it to the positive, and move on. Yeah, maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe it's nobody's fault. Maybe it just happened. But again, write them down and mind map ways to work around them. If you like mind maps like I do, I think they're very powerful. Write them down. What might you do about it? Recontextualize it, reframe it to the positive, change the situation, change the environment. All different ways we can change things. Perhaps we can learn a bit more about a particular subject or something that actually disappointed us in the first place. There's so many things we can do, but not doing anything shouldn't be an option. Dislike. If we dislike somebody, that causes an emotion, isn't it? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to tell them we don't like them? Are we going to act like we don't like them? No, absolutely not. We don't have to have a group hug with our team every morning, but we have to respect and value. They have opinions, they have ideas that could help us. So we don't have to be best friends with everybody at all, and neither should we be, but we have to treat them with respect and be the one that does that. Yeah, put yourself above your emotions and treat them with courtesy and respect. And I learned a lovely proverb in China that life's an echo. What you give, you get back a lot of the time. So be the best you can be. Rise above those negative emotions. Be the one that starts that, building that rapport. Respect them. You don't have to like them, but it makes a big difference. So how do we control them? Again, we've talked about this. In the heat of the moment, very easy to say or do something, isn't it? So pause, take that step back at the situation. Have a think. How can we change this? What were they seeing? What was their lens? Yeah. Keep calm. As we said, take those breaths. Just take yourself out of the situation. The long breaths, 4-second breaths, keep them in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. It calms you down. Listen to understand. Yeah. So what are they really saying? We can learn so much from body language. We know that body language is about 58% of what somebody's saying. Tone's about 26%. What they say is only about 15%. So it's not just what they're saying. Watch what they really mean by studying body language. Gives you a clue about how they're really feeling and their emotions. And so you can actually perhaps see it from a different angle by listening to understand. A lot of people listen, but do they really understand? They're just listening, waiting for their turn to speak. So listen to understand. It's a great way to control your triggers. You might find something out you weren't expecting. Cool down, as we said, remove yourself from the situation. Take your deep breaths. Then once things have calmed down, arrange a meeting to calmly discuss the issue. Go in with an agenda of seeing it from their perspective and hopefully get them to see it from your perspective and rationalize a decision, an agreement that means something to both. And I think this is, like we said before, when you go to bed because you're worried about something and you don't sleep for a few days because you think it's going to happen, it probably won't and probably never does. But how will you feel about it tomorrow, next week, even next month? It won't be as bad as it is now. So put it in perspective, put it into context. Is it really that important? What's the impact it will have on you? What if it's the worst situation happened? Well, it probably won't. So put yourself, change that perspective and think about how it will be next week, next month. Look back on what happened and how you could manage it to make it better. So that's about emotional intelligence. It's about what triggers us and what we can do about it. It does have a massive impact on people. It has a massive impact on performance. And this is something I've been involved with in research as well, here in the UK and internationally as well. I work with an organization who's done a lot of this research in the Middle East. I've worked in China, West Africa, and I've seen the same thing. The impact it has on people of emotionally intelligent leadership is huge. And I'm going to share that with you. So 2,500 years ago, there's a very clever guy, a Greek philosopher called Heraclitus, and he said the most valuable asset is our people. Again, I'm going back to the rig manager, the 60-year-old Barbadian who said, you guys know what you're doing. You're good at this. I'm here to help you. Then you get the 29-year-old pointy guy who's got a certificate in leadership saying, he lost his assets. We were his assets on that rig. He lost us because he was pointing his finger. He didn't care about us. But this guy 2,500 years ago said it. And as we know, organizations that care about and value their people are amongst the most successful and competitive in the world. And I would narrow that down. Organizations who have teams where leaders care about and value their people in that team are the most competitive and successful teams in the organization, led by emotionally intelligent leadership. And this is what the research is showing. If you've got highly emotionally intelligent leaders, then you'll have a team, you'll have people who will be looking at the right-hand side of this slide. They'll be positive, more focused, willing to collaborate, more able to learn because they're cared about. They feel valued. They're co-creating solutions with you. You care about what they feel and how they feel. Yeah, you know they've got a 3-legged dog at home because you're really interested in them. They become collaborative, and we can show research all over the world that shows innovation and collaboration, driving productivity, driving all sorts of different areas with organizations. But on the left-hand side, if you don't care about your people in your team, your organization, this is what you're going to get. If you're pointing fingers and don't really care about what's happening, you're not looking at their perspective, it's all about you, then you're going to get this on the left-hand side. Distracted, anxious, think less clearly, hostile workplace and colleagues, reduced memory, poor performance. And I think the most significant one, weakened immune system. Because certainly here in the UK over the last sort of 5 years, everybody's focusing on well-being. Well, I think it's just part of what we do. It's part of our culture. Why don't we care about people? Why didn't we care 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Why are we just looking at well-being now? Well, in fact, your culture of care, driven by emotionally intelligent leadership, understanding people, understanding your impact on them, that drives well-being. We shouldn't be focusing on it as a separate entity. It's about your culture. So on the left-hand side, what's happening is you've got your cortisol, a lot of cortisol, because people don't care about you. Yeah, you don't feel valued or valuable, and you will have a lot of cortisol in your blood. That's your stress drug. On the right-hand side, you have oxytocin. That is the hug drug, which everybody wants. It's fantastic. So on the left-hand side, what's going to happen with performance, of course, is you're going to get presenteeism. What that means is people are at work, but their eyes are open, their ears are open, but they're not functioning. They're somewhere else. They're on the beach with their best friends or in the bar or wherever they are. They're doing something different. So they're not really there. The impact that has on people, of course, and safety, well-being, productivity, quality is massive. So you don't want them there. Absenteeism. People on the left-hand side take an average of 10 to 12 days a year off. Well, of course they would. Nobody cares about them. They're not feeling good. They'll come up with excuses like bad backs or whatever to take a day off. What about safety? Well, that's going to be a lot better on the right-hand side because people care about each other. They're looking after each other. If they see something wrong, they'll start to tell other people and they'll do something about it. On the left-hand side, nobody cares, so safety is going to be awful, isn't it? Performance. Imagine a team on the right-hand side of positive people willing to get involved. Your performance is going to improve dramatically, isn't it? The quality, resilience of both your people and the organization and your team. Because on the right-hand side, you've got your oxytocin. Your resilience is going to be personally good, but when you're collaborating with other people, getting involved with them, the resilience of the team and the organization will improve dramatically. Retention recruitment. Who wants to work for a team or an organization where everybody's on the left-hand side? Nobody. They want to work in a team or an organization that has the culture of caring that's driven by emotionally intelligent leadership on the right-hand side, where they're listening to understand, they're co-creating solutions, they care about you. So this is huge for me. And it's about your corporate social responsibility. We've proven that people who feel this way on the right-hand side, who feel cared about, valued, they go out into the community at the weekend. They work with charities, so much more. It's about sustainability. And of course, your brand risk. If you've got people on the left-hand side that you don't care about, the culture of care isn't there, they'll be talking to other people and your brand will become threatened. Your team will become threatened. Your group will become threatened. So this is the power of performance based around emotionally intelligent leadership, highly emotionally intelligent. And really, you think about the quality of working life for people, which is what it should be all about. Yeah, who wants to go work on the left-hand side? Who's going to jump out of bed and run into work on the left-hand side? But on the right-hand side, they'll be quite happy to go to work. They'll be thinking about what they can be doing today and the people they'll be working with. So it'll be quite a powerful impact. And we talk with some lawyers. We're doing some work with some lawyers, and of course, litigation is going to happen on the left-hand side. You know, if you're not looking after your people, certainly here in the UK, you have to do your stress and psychological analysis of what's stressing people out in the organisation. If you don't do it, you can be fined. A bit like safety. If we have accidents and incidents, then we're going to get fined. We're going to lose time, we lose money, we lose resources. So it's about developing this culture that moves people to the right-hand side. And what we do have, we have a lot of mental health first aiders working with organizations. And again, certainly here in the UK, most organizations do. But what happens is they help the people on the left-hand side, but then they're putting them back into the same culture that impacted them in the first place. So it's about developing this culture of care, this through emotionally intelligent leadership, to shift everything to the right. And that is a wonderful integrated organization where everything's about your culture. It's not about safety, it's not about quality, it's not about performance, it's not about retention. Everything's driven by culture. So we don't have to focus on well-being, we don't have to focus on quality. Focus on your people, care about your people, and these things start to happen. And there's your well-being, driven by the culture. So it's not just us that's saying this, it's not just the research we've done and we've been involved with. This is from Gallup. Business leaders worldwide must raise the bar on employee engagement through your emotionally intelligent leadership. It's about sustainable growth for companies, communities, and countries. Yeah, I'm seeing more and more organizations, certainly over the last 2 years, starting to see the benefit for them. If we just go back, if I'm talking to a board of directors, then I'm using the language on the right-hand side. I'm showing them the impact of emotionally intelligent leadership at every level of an organization, because I believe even if you're a foreman looking after 2 people, you shouldn't be managing those people, you should be leading those people. If you're a line manager, you shouldn't be managing people, you should be managing things and processes. You should be leading and inspiring those people. So this is leadership at every level of the organization. So if I'm talking at board level, I'm talking about risk, corporate social responsibility, and sustainability, because that's the language of the board. If I'm talking with operations people, managers, senior manager, I'm talking about quality, performance, well-being, retention, recruitment. And if I'm talking with the frontline people, I'm talking about quality of work in life. Yeah, this is why we need to be involved with this. It's about quality of work in life. So different language of different people, but it's all about your emotionally intelligent leadership, making it a better place to be that a team or an organization. This to me was an amazing research when I first saw this, and this is quite a way back. We're still focusing on bikes and bananas out there, thinking we're doing well for well-being. That's about being well. There's a subtle difference between being well and well-being. Bikes and bananas, great, no problem, but it's not finding out what the stressors are of the organization, what's stressing people out in the organization. Because stress, there's no such thing as work-related stress. There's pressure at work, but too much pressure at work and at home, that leads to stress. Excess of pressure leads to stress. And we get stressed at home, we get stressed with colleagues, we get stressed at work, or we get the pressure at work, we get the pressure at home. Too much of that leads to stress. But what happens with engaged employees, if they're feeling resilient because they've got oxytocin, then they're less likely to be knocked over. They're much more resilient. They can handle more pressure. They will take fewer unhealthy days as a result of physical and mental illness. Less likely to be diagnosed with a new disease in the new year, or the next year, sorry. Less likely to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. This is phenomenal. And that's by having emotionally intelligent leaders inspiring and leading those teams, inspiring and leading the organizations. And the more we're getting this message across, the more we're seeing people going beyond compliance into caring about the people, because they're understanding the impact it can have. So I find that fascinating. So as I said, can we develop our emotional intelligence? Well, yes, we can. And I would suggest, if you've not done it before, go and take one of these self-awareness questionnaires. There's a Boston, and if you want to, you can ask at the end of this, and I'll send one through. There's a Boston Emotional Intelligence questionnaire, asks 50 questions and rates it into the self-awareness, social awareness, self-control, emotional control. And you can understand where you can actually focus, where you need to focus as an improvement opportunity. It's not a problem, it's an improvement opportunity. And this feedback is absolutely critical to being the best we can be. It's saying thank you when people do give you constructive feedback, not getting emotional, it's taking a step back. As an emotionally intelligent leader, understanding why they're giving you the feedback, how you might improve. I remember as a guy in London working for a big American company, I was the guy that went in and thought everything should be really funny. I was enjoying myself, enjoying life. I went into meetings and made jokes. Somebody took me aside, but it took them a couple of years to do it, and said, Kevin, people are different. Yeah, you're imposing your traits on others. You're thinking that everybody understands and wants to be like that. I had no social awareness. I had no self-awareness. Somebody took me aside and said, you know what, this is the impact you're having, in a nice way, over a coffee. And I understood it, and I thanked him for it, and it changed the way I'm perceived in board meetings with other people. It's taking that step back, seeing it through their lens, understanding what motivates and demotivates other people. So having feedback from certainly colleagues, certainly friends, and saying thank you for that is a huge way to improve your emotional intelligence. And as we know, the impact that can have on yourself, on others. And actively listen, as we said, active listening is about listening to understand. Yeah, it's about looking at their body language. It's about understanding the tone. What do they really mean? So actively listen to people. And if you don't quite understand, say, well, what I think you're saying is this. That's a really good way to start to understand people. What I think you're saying is this. That's clarification of communications. But that is absolutely the best way. If you want to do a 360 or a 180, that's always a good way to get some feedback as well. But learn from it and understand what they're saying. And of course, we've got past experiences. Yeah, we've been through this before. We've all had stresses and pressures and things that haven't gone quite right. Have we learned from them, or do we just blunder on into the next one? I'm not sure. But let's reflect on those experiences. What worked? Mind mapping, to me, not everybody likes mind mapping. I think mind mapping is really powerful because you can focus on something and reflect on different things and then go and look at different opportunities of how we can actually get around those challenges. But what worked well? Focus on the positive. Why did it work well? Not what went wrong, but perhaps what could have gone right. So if reframe to the positive, it's a really good way of driving engagement and driving our own thoughts. Yeah, we've got this negativity, haven't we? Automatic negative thoughts, I think Sue called them ants. But if we reframe to the positive, change the context, then we can actually drive that, drive the learning from past experiences. And as the final thing, regulate those emotions. Take note when you're in a stressful situation or there's too much pressure coming at you. What's happening? Why is that happening? Take yourself out of it. What works for you? It doesn't always work for everybody. There's no one size fits all. Maybe a walk in the woods, maybe a walk by a river, sit by a stream. They're proving that negative ions calm us down anyway. All sorts of different ways of decompressing, de-stressing, depressurizing, whether it's taking a walk in the woods or not hugging a tree. Do what you want. There's no rules, but make it work for you. Take the step back. Don't get angry. Take the deep breath. Look through somebody else's lens, and it'll improve you, them, the team, the organization. That's what we should be doing. So as a summary, really, the penultimate slide, I think we're a few minutes early, but hopefully it's got this sort of impact that we have on people, ourselves, and others is really important. So I guess these are the 3 key points. Yeah. Led by emotional reaction, decisions are often made in the heat of the moment because we react, don't we? We don't respond. So we're going to move from reacting to responding by taking that step back, looking at it through somebody else's lenses, and see how we might come to some sort of agreements, how we might co-create solutions. There's always somebody there to help if we've engaged with them, if we're communicating effectively with them. Yeah, listen to understand. So the best decisions are based on both emotion and logic. So don't act on impulse. Respond, don't react. And I think that's the key of this whole session, about responding, not reacting. You can change that. And judge softly. Think about how you're feeling, how your behavior or decision will impact those around you. Because people don't do things on purpose to get things wrong. 99% of the time, of course, there's always the odd idiot will, but most of the time they're doing something to try and support the organization, to support the team, to support their manager, their leader. And maybe the communication wasn't quite right. They're doing their best, but maybe it wasn't right. So judge softly. Yeah, we can only retain 5 or 6 things in our brain at one time, conscious brain. If you're giving them too much information, there's no way on earth they will actually retain that. Yeah, if you tell them to focus on a task and they do and they miss something, is that their fault? You told them to focus, so they focused and they might have missed something. So take that step back. Understand that we do things, we will save time, effort, energy. We will all do it. We'll take the shortcuts if we can. It's human nature. So judge softly, and you will build that trust. You will build that psychological safety with your teams, and you'll become a better emotionally intelligent leader, a better all-round leader. And that's exactly what we need in the workplace, in the community. So that's an overview of what I believe emotional intelligence is, the triggers, how we can actually manage it, and the impact on business, people, teams, organizations. So if nobody said thank you today so far, thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much, Kevin. It's a really interesting and informative session. So we do have some questions. So the first question is all about, how does an emotionally intelligent leader focus on people above all other things? So is the focus just on the people and not on results, or is it a sort of an emphasis on people?
What we found, so it's fascinating. I have a wonderful story, and I'll sum it up in a minute. But we're proving that productivity increases by valuing your people, engaging with your people. Engagement is driving performance, and that includes productivity. 2 major organizations here in the UK we're working with currently have improved their productivity by 16% by getting rid of targets and focusing on the people. And this discretionary effort that comes through by caring and valuing for people, the innovation that comes through, a very large international aerospace organization started to engage with their front line. They built this product 30% quicker and saved millions of pounds per product by listening to the front line. They knew what they were doing. They're making decisions based on information, not instruction. But if nobody's listening to them, if nobody cares about them, there's no emotionally intelligent leadership engaging with them, then they won't tell you. Once they started to understand the company cared about them, their leaders were emotionally intelligent, they asked them, they listened to them to understand, then that innovation came out. But why would it if nobody cared about them? But there's a wonderful story of Coca-Cola where the language was get it done, get it done, get it done. So that was the focus. That's what they did, because language drives behaviors. And Ken Woodward, who I now know, a very lovely guy, got blinded. He actually went to mix some chemicals because this voice in his head said, get it done, get it done. That's the culture. And he got blinded. They got fined £2.2 million a long time ago. So it's a lot of money then. And they said, what are we doing wrong? And people said, you don't care about us. Because they were managers pointing fingers. It wasn't that Barbadian lovely guy on the rig that I met who said, look, let's work this out together. They had the wrong people in the wrong place. They changed everything. They took away targets and productivity went up by 16% by caring about their people, by co-creating solutions, by improving the quality of working life. And this has been proven time and again. So great question. And yes, it's a great way to improve.
Thank you. There's been several questions about how do we actually test our own emotional intelligence to see the areas that we need to work on. So I think if you could send me the link to that self-test, I can then share it with people after the webinar. I think that would be very helpful.
I'll send you a copy through. So it's a wonderful thing to do. And when I run any sessions, workshops or anything, I have to stop because nobody will move on until they've done it. It's fascinating to see. I say, oh, take 10 minutes. No, it takes 20 minutes. But people want to finish it because it's self-reflection and it helps them improve. And I think that's fantastic. So yes, I'll send that through to you.
Thank you. So this is somebody who works in a large organization and is actually leading a large team and is asking how can they effectively connect on a personal level with their team when there are all the other sort of demands on their time. So how do they make time for their team?
You have to make time. How you do it, I don't know, because I don't know the particular circumstances. But it's to me, it's about listening. It's about not going out and talking to them. If you do go out and talk to them, which you should do as a leader anyway, if you're taking the time to go and talk to them and you give them 5 minutes a week each or 5 minutes a day, it doesn't matter. Change that around to listening to them. That'll have a massive impact. It means you care about them. Talking to them is great, but listening to them is even better. So having the time to listen to them all, have a group meeting once a week, once a month, it doesn't matter, but make that time because it shows that you care. But you have to make the time. Time management's a big thing if you've got a big team. Certainly remotely, it's a little bit different, but challenging. But again, respect their opinions, ask their opinions. It's about asking, it's about listening, not about talking to, it's listening to. And however you can do that, depending on your circumstances, then you need to make that time because it will have an impact.
Okay, thank you. Great advice there. So leading on from that, somebody's asked, isn't this also to do about being personally brave or more brave? You know, do I need to be brave to ask people how they feel about me as a leader?
It depends on your emotional intelligence. We're all completely different, and I celebrate that. We've all got different skill sets. You should be brave enough because you'll learn from it. And if you are brave enough, it's showing them that you're brave enough and you're changing the whole dynamics of the team. If you respect what they say, then fantastic, go and do it. Be brave, be bold, because that's what leaders need to be.
Yeah.
You ain't going to improve unless you find out where you need to improve. You can't change how you work with people and respond to them and react to them unless you understand how they're feeling. So yeah, you can learn a lot from asking people. Go and be brave, be bold, because leaders need to be. The more the merrier.
Okay, next question then. I was once told, why am I asking attendees questions during training and not just providing the answers? Allowing the emotional intelligence of attendees to shine only helps to ensure retention of information. Do you find that asking questions in other areas also helps to promote emotional intelligence?
Yeah, asking questions of anybody is going to get them thinking. If we get people thinking about a subject, and that's the problem with it, I'm going to go right back to schools here. At schools, we tell kids it's that. That's how it's not. It's that. So asking questions about what do you think? How do you feel about it? Getting emotions involved will change people's perceptions of how they think and what they think. And by challenging what people's perceptions are, helps us to grow. As a team, and I think one of the best things I've ever done, and I've done it loads of times, is bringing different teams together. Because they all think, well, we're different to them. They're not that different. And the impact they have on each other is incredible. And understanding they're not that much different. They're looking at the same goals, the same vision, the same outcomes. So I think asking questions is absolutely critical. And again, it's about learning, listening to understand. Why are they thinking the way they're thinking? You won't know unless you ask the questions. So I guess you call it experiential learning is really powerful, and that will help people retain information as opposed to just telling them. Because I think there's some statistics, and I'm not a great fan of statistics because they all change, but you only retain, if you're told something, it's 10% retention. If you do something, or if you watch something, it's 30, and if you do something, it's 70. But if we're involved in conversations and actively questioning and challenging, you will retain a lot more information and learn more. So absolutely, question away.
Great, thank you. So will an increase in my own emotional awareness lead to better resilience and improved culture, or is it an increase in my team's emotional awareness, or is it a mixture of the both?
It's got to be a mixture of the both. Has to be. And again, if you're bold and brave, do your own and then get the team to do it. Sit down with them, say, what do we feel? Who are we? What do we call ourselves? What do we do? What's our common purpose? That's all about emotional intelligence. It's helping them understand as well their impact on each other, their impact on you, their impact on what you're trying to do as a team or an organization. Absolutely. It will, if everybody improves, we're always moving forward. If you improve individually, then as an emotionally intelligent leader, you will understand that they are your stakeholders. How do they feel? Well, ask them. Yeah, get them to do an emotionally intelligent questionnaire. There's no problem if they're better than you, because better means different. but wow, could you use their resources? You'll find things out about them, they'll find things about them, and that's how we move forward. So yes, go and do it.
And the final question, I think, for the moment is, how does this all link with mindset? And do people with positive mindsets have better emotional intelligence, or is there not that sort of causal link?
There is, absolutely. You can reframe things to the positive, and it just drives everything. I've got a really good example of I think I've used it before. Well, Billy Connolly, the famous comedian, went to the doctors, and the doctor said, Billy, you've got Parkinson's disease and there's no cure. So how does that make him feel? If the doctor said, Billy, you've got Parkinson's, but there's thousands of people around the world working on a cure, because he's an emotionally intelligent doctor, how does that make Billy Connolly feel? A damn sight better. So it does have a massive impact. Reframing to the positive is a great way to drive engagement. Yeah. It's like having a investigation or a learning review. Yeah. It's about beware of something or be aware of it. It's that subtle difference, isn't it? That drives performance, behaviors, feelings. So yes, the more positive, the better.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. Just checking to see if we've got any more questions. I don't think we have, so I think we'll leave it there for today. So thank you again, Kevin, for sharing all your knowledge with us. It's been a really interesting and informative session, as I said earlier. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today as well. The recording will be on the IIRSM Resource Hub hopefully later today, so you'll be able to catch up or recap on anything in your own time, and I'll also email out the test that Kevin's alluded to as well. So I think we'll end the webinar here. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and I hope to see everybody again at our next IIRSM webinar in the near future. Thanks ever so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.